Hello there. I'm Dr. Bob Zyback. This is the first time I've ever given a presentation to nobody. Coronavirus has caused us to be jury-rigged here, not jerry-rigged. This is for the 2020 spring term F251 Forest Recreation class taught by Tasha Livingstone. I've worked with her for the last, this will be our third year working together. And what I will be doing is giving some virtual tours of the Elliott Forest, and we'll have 3 workshops. So we'll have 5 field trips and 3 workshops. I think most of the information is here, but I'll be sending it to you so you don't have to worry about reading this. As far as taking notes, anything that's audio or video, just simply put it on pause, mark down the minute and the seconds. You don't have to do a lot of writing. We've got this set up so there won't be any homework, hopefully. And the other work or notes that need to be taken will be on the computer, and we'll look at that fairly quickly. Today we're just going to go through the basics, try to set crews up, and give you an idea what's in store for the next 8 weeks. The equipment you'll need: a personal computer with Wi-Fi, access to a printer. There are hard copies needed at different times, and I highly recommend an external hard drive. That way your dog can't eat the homework. Note taking, just covered that. Video and audio counter. You just mark down the minutes and the seconds, and you will know where to cue a video or audio tape, and we'll have quite a bit of that because everything is virtual. Note taking, internet URLs. We don't want any URLs for references because they change, but we will have lots of links, and we'll look at the computer in a little bit, and those can simply be copied and put into your notes. We'll be working with Google using a Word doc format. I'm learning how to do that myself. But it looks like it'll be pretty good to work with. References, all the references need to be online. Oregon websites and watersheds, we'll be talking about that when we look at the computer, but we've been doing computerized lessons, working with students for more than 20 years, and everything that we need to use as far as references for the materials that you'll be researching or citing or quotes is online. And it's the most extensive digital library, the most extensive library ever assembled on the Elliott Forest. A lot of that's been because of the students that we worked with the last 2 years. References will be, what we'll work with is HTML files. That's typical internet links. PDF files, those are hard copies that we can print up. MP3s for audio files, MP4s for video files. So if you find something online you want to use and we don't have it on the Oregon website, then just simply mail me the link. I'll make a PDF file or a hard copy file of it in some format, MP3 or MP4, and we will put it online for use of future students. Formats, I think we covered it. Word doc. We'll be going through Google, the final report that you'll give based on the 3 workshops will be in a Word format. I can cover that. I can put it into a PDF, and I can put it into an HTML format for future student use. Everything will be JPEGs, MP3s, and MP4s. Here's the topics we're going to be discussing this term. I'm not used to speaking to an audience that doesn't exist. Usually if students are fiddling with their iPhones or talking or nodding out, I can ask them a question or put them on the spot, kind of get their attention. Or if I'm not being clear about something, or I'm repeating myself too much, then students can say something to me. We don't have that luxury. So you're going to have to communicate any questions you have by Google. And I'm learning how to use it too at the same time as you are. So that'll be maybe a little bit clunky. The thing I am used to is telling jokes and not getting any audience response, so that's not a problem. When I said jury-rigged and jerry-rigged, jury-rigged is taking a minimalist approach, and with coronavirus, we haven't been able to get a studio, editors. This is being filmed on an iPhone in my bedroom with no special effects. Jury-rigged is you make do with what you've got. I used to have a partner that'd say crude but effective. Jerry-rigged is it doesn't work. So that's the difference between the two. One, we put something together that hopefully will work. If it falls apart, then it's jerry-rigged. It didn't work. Here are the student topics. Now these come from, there's an article here. I was going to bribe everybody with it. We'll look at it. It's online now. If you send me your address, I'll send you a free copy. I was going to hand out copies to the first class, so I do have a copy for everybody. And it's got an article, which we'll look at on the computer, for the last two classes. They wrote, the last two forest recreation classes wrote the very first recreation plan ever for the Elliott Forest. And you'll be learning more about the Elliott as we go along, but it's an 80,000 acre common school fund forest land. And we've been studying it for the last 2 years with Tasha's class. I think I took it down too quick, but we have David Gould, who has been repairing the roads, cutting the brush, filling in the potholes, helping to fund this project. Myself, working with Oregon websites, and we had Wayne Giese working with us at the beginning. And the sad news is that Wayne died in July. He was 99. And I've worked with him, and he co-founded Oregon Websites and Watersheds more than 20 years ago. So there's an article about him too online if you're curious about Wayne. All of this work is based on Jerry Phillips, and he's accompanied the classes, and you'll see his picture in the magazine when we get to that part of the discussion. The main thing the students did the last 2 years, we'll be making recommendations with what you think can make it better. But recreation involves access to recreational opportunities, and there has to be attractions. So the last 2 years, the students' recommendations were consistent. The roads of the Elliott are terrible. They don't have any signs. They need to be repaired. So for recreational access for hunters and fishermen that don't like a lot of company, that's pretty good. But for other visitors, you have to have special equipment, a four-wheel drive or a pickup. You better have good phone service. There's a lot of places without any telephone access, so it's kind of remote. However, the roads themselves can be an opportunity. They can be an attraction, and we will be discussing that quite a bit as we go along. These roads, a lot of them are historic, and so what we will do is divide the students up. There's 9 of you, I think, at this point. So each one of you will take a topic, and then you will select 2 backup topics. So these 9 topics here, based on the recommendations of the students the last 2 years, each person will take a lead on it. You'll have your name on it. It'll be on the internet. You'll be responsible, and your co-authors' names will be on it too. We set it up so you don't have to do any homework, that these reports will be completed during the workshops. If you want to put in extra time, that's your prerogative. But I think we've got it set up so the 5 virtual field trips and the 3 workshops should be all that's needed. Any grades will come from Tasha, of course. I've got nothing to do with grading, nothing to do with the class other than these field trips. So the first topic, and 1 out of 9 of you will take this, and 2 out of 9 of you will be the backup co-authors, is Indian trails and canoe routes from 1850, when history starts on the Elliott basically, to 1930, when the Elliott was formed. That's one topic. The second one is the pioneer settler pack trails, and a lot of this has to do with the Gould family. So David Gould's name, who is the field guide and road maintenance person, and also the history expert, his family mostly settled the Elliott in 1884, and between their cabins, their ranch, the Elkhorn Ranch, and their pack trails, almost all the Elliott was being trapped. Livestock has been raised, gardens were being set, honeybees were set out, honey was being raised. One family, the Gould family, and we'll be learning more about them as we go. Pre-Elliott county and logging roads, they did do some logging in the Elliott. They had splash dams, we'll talk about that. The highway, I think 38, Umpqua River Highway, now an Oregon, I think Scenic Highway, was built about 1928. The county road to Loon Lake about the same time, and there was a very interesting road that went through Golden and Silver Falls, up over to Scottsburg, and that was a very rudimentary automobile road with mail delivery before World War I. The CCCs came in as an unusual CCC group, and it was mostly local boys, mostly 18 to 22 years of age, and they built a series of roads and fire lookouts between 1932 and 1940, and there's extensive history on that. They're an important part of our nation's history, very important part of the Elliott history. Early Elliott logging roads. These would be after they formed the Elliott. They did have some timber sales. In the late 50s, they did sell what little old growth was on the Elliott in order to build roads so that they have future sales. When the Elliott was formed in 1930 as a common school fund land and Oregon's first state forest, the idea would be to manage it for the financial benefit of all Oregon schools. So they did put in some logging roads at the very beginning that went to the old growth, and those were the first logging sales on the Elliott in the late 50s. And so those are important historically for that reason. Then in October 1962, an event I remember very well, and so does everybody else who was more than 6 years old in Oregon at that time. It blew down 100 million board feet on the Elliott. It was an incredible windstorm from Northern California through, I think all the way up to BC, but certainly Southwest Washington. And there was a huge salvage job that had to be done at that time. And that was, the problems were compounded because the trees that blew over, for the most part, were only 70 years old. The Elliott had burned off in the 1868. We'll talk about the 1879 fire. And those events created a second growth natural stand of reprod that in 1930, they knew it would be 25 or 30 years before the trees became merchantable. So in 1962, that changed the time schedule. So for the next 10 or 15 years, they built a network of roads through the Elliott in order to harvest that timber, and then that money went into the Common School Fund, and it created a lot of local jobs. Cougar Pass Lookout was created by the 3 Cs in 1936. One of the roads that we'll be looking at, 3 Cs roads, connected Cougar Pass with Dean's Mountain and with the city of Reedsport, and that's still standing. They abandoned the lookout in 1985, and now it's hazard, and now they built a trench across the road, so it's hard to get to it, but we'll be looking at that very close. And your very first assignment is going to be the day, and it's going to be about a 10-minute writing exercise, but it will involve the Cougar Pass Fire Lookout. Dean's Mountain Lookout, whoever gets that, it's easy. Jerry Phillips is the historian of the Elliott. He was forest manager from, while he started working on the Elliott in the early 50s, and up until his retirement about 1990, probably the most successful state forest manager anywhere, but certainly on the Elliott. And then he wrote a 400-some page history of the Elliott, and that's been the basis for our studies the last 2 years and for this year as well. And Dean's Mountain, he's covered that history very well. Finally, we've got Elk Mountain and Trail Butte lookouts. So the 9th topic is these 2 lookouts. Elk Mountain was very early, maybe 1915, maybe 1920. And that was a fire lookout looking northward into the burnt off area of the southern Siuslaw National Forest at that time, before it became the Elliott. The Trail Butte lookout, we'll be talking about that quite a bit. That was created in World War II. We were afraid of Japanese attack, so we built a lookout tower just to look for incoming planes, and that was manned, I think, 12 months a year. But those two topics, there's very little, relatively little known compared to Dean's Mountain, and certainly nothing remaining, no artifacts remaining like with Cougar Mountain. So the workshops and field trips, those were 4 hours, but travel time and that typically we discussed work that had to be done, and on our field trips they were about 3.5 hours. So each one of these workshops and each one of the field trips, I'm going to try to line it out so a combination of video, audio, reading, everything but discussion, and actual travel will be timed to be about 3.5 hours roughly, so that you have plenty of time to imagine what's on the field trips, to view the videos we take of the different locations, to consider the materials, but you won't be there. So if any of you know how to use a drone or anything to do with virtual reality, this is an opportunity to do some fun work on how to recreate these kinds of conditions. It's unprecedented. We haven't ever done this before, tried to do a field trip without being in the field. So there's some opportunity for students that want to do some creative thinking or have some particular skills they enjoy. Again, zero homework. It's all designed to be this session and the following 2 sessions should culminate in a report in which the co-authors have time to have input, and that should be all you need to do. And you'll be graded by Tasha as far as the quality of your effort, and your work will be put online by me so future students can use it, and they can also evaluate the quality of your work. And there's the final report. It'll have a lead author, 2 co-authors. It'll be made public. It's important you do good work. I'm available to help. Any kinds of questions you have, any kind of references, hopefully we'll cover those in these lectures. I'll try to keep these as short as possible, but that'll be your obligation for taking this class and getting credit for the field trip and report portion of it. Okay, I'm about through talking. We're going to go to the computer pretty quick. You don't have to be taking notes on this. Like I say, if there's something that you're interested in for any reason or got a question about, just write down the minute and the second so you can go right to that point. On the computer, I've got the links. I'll be sending you out a worksheet along with this video presentation, and all the links will be in place. I'll show you on the computer here shortly what we'll be using for background information and what you can expect your finished reports to look like and what context that will be. So here's the first workshop. That's today. I think I introduced everybody. It's up to you to select a team. You'll do that through Tasha. That'll be 9 teams, author and 2 co-authors each. And we will be practicing Google, me too. See how this works, what kinds of questions there are, and the Google practice we'll do today will involve the Cougar Pass lookout. First field trip, yesterday I went with David Gould and Mackenzie Peters, who did the video work, and we did the first trip. We made 14 stops, 2 or 3 minutes a stop, so you'll be able to see that, and then you'll have audio and photographs and maps and things to work with. Then field trip number 2, I've got April 28th, that's a Tuesday. I think I'm going to have these online by Monday, so you'll have all week with them. But we'll be looking at CCC roads and trails, and that was the kids that built the roads, local boys, between 1932 and 1940. That was unusual. A lot of the 3Cs had kids from Chicago or deep south come to Oregon, but the group that worked on the Elliott Forest were all pretty much local, Reeds Fork, Coos Bay people. Then we'll have our second workshop. That one, we're going to go over the technical work, and we'll look at it briefly because we don't want this to be too technical. But there's section 106. That's the federal government, SHPO, State Historic Preservation Office. We'll be looking at keeping acronyms to a minimum, but that's an important one. And we'll be looking at significance. Why are these 9 different resources significant? And that's technical lingo for why are they important, and there are tests for that. The first test being it's got to be over 50 years of age, and all 9 of those are over 50 years of age, so they passed that test. There's other tests too. And documentation. We'll be looking at a video today on how to use a drone to document roads and trails. Other forms of documentation talked about briefly, PDF files, audio files, and that are already freely available, and we've got an extensive amount of information to work with. Then we'll take field trip number 3 on the week of May 12th. That'll be to Loon Lake. We'll be going to the elk viewing area, and we will be looking and discussing Indian trails, early Indian use, historical, from 1850 until 1930. May 19th, we'll take the 4th field trip. That'll be to 10 Mile Lakes, and we'll be looking at Columbus Day storm road networks. That event happened, well, 1962, so 58 years ago, and immediately caused a dramatic change in the management of the Elliott. Construction roads, those are all public access now, so it's an important part of our history. May 26th will be the last field trip, and that would be the most fun if we actually did it, but we'll go to Golden and Silver Falls. We won't get to eat donuts on the way home, but we will do some video, we'll have some discussion, and there's an old county road that goes through there. So it's just on the perimeter of the Elliott. It's not within the Elliott boundaries, but it's within the boundaries that students set the last 2 years. And the maps you'll see of the Elliott Forest Recreation Area. Southernmost of that is Golden and Silver Falls, and that will be the 5th trip. And we will be looking at some county road fragments there. And then finally, this will all wrap up on June 2nd with the 3rd workshop. You'll take your work from workshop number 2. You'll give it to your 2 co-authors. They will look at it and hopefully improve it, look seriously at it, and then give it back to you to construct the final report. And an important part of that, I got it underlined 2 or 3 times there, recommendations. What can we do to make these presentations better? What can we do if we have to have virtual tours in the future to make them better? And this is important because it's not just this class this year because of coronavirus, but it's also important for students 10 and 20 years from now, or students that live in Eastern Oregon, other common school fund land, interest in other areas of the state, people that aren't privileged or available or capable of taking a field trip on the Elliott. We're going to be doing that. So your report will be important in that regard, and that will give people good information, good background as far as the value of these assets. So with that, we're going to go to the computer and look at some of the links. And again, don't worry too much about taking notes because I'll send you all a worksheet with the links on them, and you can look at the materials that way. Okay, I mentioned briefly that Wayne Giese and I had founded Oregon Websites and Watersheds Project 23 years ago. Since then, we've worked with students of all age groups, 2nd grade to graduate students. The last 3 years, this will be the 3rd year, we've been working with Tasha Livingstone and the Forest Recreation class here at SWOCC, Southwestern Oregon Community College. And most of the work will be in 3 locations. One is the Oregon Websites page, which we will briefly navigate. The others being the ORWW media page, which is a YouTube channel, which we will also look at. And the 3rd one being the experimental educational Cougar Pass website, which is on Google, and we will be testing our a Google communication system. So if you come to Oregon Websites and you want to find out what the heck we've been doing, you press the About button, and then that tells you all of the projects we've worked on through the years with different students, different topics all around the state of Oregon, what our mission is, background, and so on. There's some broken links in there, partly because they're 20 years old, and links change, and partly because they're incomplete student assignments. So we don't want to do that. So if we go to the home page and we look at what students have been doing the last few years, you can see social isolation was a recreational opportunity on the Elliott 70 years ago. This is Roger Rott, and he is on Gould's Lake, which no longer exists, and catching fish. We can scroll down and see the work that students have done the last few years, including last year's forest recreation plan. If we go to there, and you will get all these links on a separate sheet, so don't worry about it. Just be familiar that these resources are available. And we can see how the students worked on different projects for the last 2 years, putting together the first recreation plan ever developed for the Elliott, and culminating in your reading assignment today, which is the magazine article. Now, this work is based on Jerry Phillips' writing, and it involves field trips. And last year we had a student, Kobe Etzweiler, do his series on the field trips themselves. So you can go and get a preview of the different field trips, locations, and Kobe's assessment of what he learned. And that will be a opening resource as we go into the field trips. Okay, here's the magazine. This is linked up. It's online that I showed you earlier. And again, if you want your own personal copy, I will mail it to you. I need your mailing address, and I was going to bribe you all with copies, but it's all going to be virtual. So I've been writing for this magazine for about 8 or 9 years, and this is all about the students of the last 2 years. And so there you can see Tasha and me and David Gould and Jerry Phillips and the forest recreation students and a couple local birders from a couple years ago. And this is your reading assignment for today. Here is the student recreation map for the Elliott, and you can see right here, if you can see the cursor, there's the cursor right there. That's Golden and Silver Falls. And here we are leaving. This is Jerry's favorite point on the Elliott. There's the Jerry Phillips Reserve, which we'll visit in the first field trip next Monday. And here's a crew of SWOCC students, forest recreation students, touring that field trip 2 years ago. And here, if you look closely, there's the cursor, there's my finger. There are students right there at Golden and Silver Falls. That's the last field trip of last year, and that will be your last field trip this year. If you have an opportunity to go there on your own, that would be great, and you would enjoy it. Here are hunters on the Elliott. The person on the left, that's her first grouse. The photograph was taken by Amelia Harvey. She's this person on the right, that's her first bear. Both of those animals were killed on the Elliott, and a couple of proud hunters. So that's one of the recreational opportunities there. Here's our standard meeting spot. Here's our students from last year with me and David and Jerry and Tasha, and the student report you'll read, and you'll see who wrote what they learned. We got a bear killer in there, and we got Kobe, the map person. So that's what we wrote up before. That'll be your introduction today, and that'll be your main reading assignment today. Here we are back on the ORWW homepage, and you can see here's the link to the forest recreation. We also had another one link before. There's Wayne Geezy and Jerry and David, and we've got good significant information on this, and this will be very helpful to this year's work because we're looking at the history of these roads, the history of these lookout towers, and looking at the potential for them being attractions for recreational use as well as safe recreational access. Now on the history pages, there's several books, hundreds of photos, maps, all kinds of materials to look at, and I will be sending you links to specific materials depending on your group, so you don't have to wade through all of it. Now, a good share of the virtual tours will be on oral histories. We did 19 hours of oral histories all over the Elliott. We got maps, we got photographs, we got sound recordings, we got transcripts, and thanks to Oregon State College of Forestry, we have an index to everything. So depending on what you're studying, whether it's 3C roads or Indian trails, you don't have to listen to all 19 hours. You can go by these maps, which show the routes we took, and the locations where different interviews were conducted, the minutes and seconds. This is all you need to mark down on your notes to find something again, unless you want a direct quote or something. Everything is located on the minutes and seconds, on the described tapes, and also on the page numbers. So you can go exactly to what you're looking for. E.K. Wood was one of the first loggers, so that'd be the early logging roads. And we've got that for the entire forest. We've also got additional links, as you can see, and this will be a good share of the trips. You will be listening to local experts explaining what they're seeing on location while you're locating it on a map and looking at photographs and occasional videotapes. Back to the home page, back to an Elliott link, and we come up with references. Now, this is about a year behind time. I got quite a few more references to put on board, but this is more than you can handle anyhow. It's all PDF files. You can pick out a reference, something you want to look up, click on it, just pick something arbitrary here. I don't know what it is. You go right to it, and you can cite it, and that will take you right to that source of information. So the references are really important. There's lots of them. I'll assign those. You'll get them as reading assignments to go on the workshops, or possibly a few tours. Additionally, there are numerous maps. Let's go here, and we got maps that you can use and follow. They'll be assigned. The top map here shows Indian trails. Other maps show legal boundaries. They show old growth locations. They show county roads. Some of them are historical, going back to the 1930s. And so you'll have plenty of materials to work with. You can cite these maps or put them in your reports as needed. I briefly mentioned Section 106 and SHPO, and these are guiding lights for what we'll be doing, how we'll be presenting information, photographs, historical backgrounds, descriptions, tests of significance. And Tasha made the excellent decision not to use the official forums. So we will have an outline in which this type of information is gathered, but not in such a systematic fashion, and certainly without as many acronyms as used by the state. So this is just a point of reference. This is a potential future condition for your work to get it registered, but thank goodness we will be avoiding this and sticking to basics, historical documentation, and evaluation based on tests of significance. So that will be workshop number 2. We'll be looking at that a little bit closer, not a whole lot of detail, but mostly what to avoid and what and how to present the information we will actually be developing. So right now this is offline, but all of these documents will be available on Oregon websites when it comes time to use them. Now we'll come to the fun stuff, and today's work assignment. One of the things you'll be doing today as part of your 3.5 hours is sitting through a 14-minute video. It was made over the summer specifically for this class. Before we knew about coronavirus, we thought, well, some of you might have drones or be interested in documenting roads or trails. using that type of equipment. That still holds true, but now this has become an important part of the presentation rather than an entertaining sidelight. This was all shot with a iPhone and a drone, free of editing, video editing software, and you can see a rural country road being documented. The music in the background is from the 1850s, the Oregon Trail, Truman Price. So we do have a lot of music online as well that can be used in your presentations if you want to do that. As far as being creative or doing things that can be looked at by people in other areas of the state or other times, certainly drone work or virtual reality operations can be considered. Okay, that's 14 minutes long, and that's one of your assignments for today. One final thing here. So one of the things we made specifically for this class is Cougar Pass Lookout Center. This is a website built by Dr. David Sullivan. He's a retired professor from Oregon State. These are his blueprints. It's a proposal that we had 2 or 3 years ago. This website here is your main assignment for today, to look through how it's constructed, how the information's put together. There's some drone footage on it, some different concepts and approaches. You don't need to do anything along these lines at all. The people that are working on the Cougar Pass Lookout will have this site specifically to work with, and they're going to get a little help from all of you today. So you can see different maps, photographs, videos that present the information, get the background on who's working on it, including Oregon websites. And what I'm going to ask you to do today is in the comments section. I don't know if we have any. This is going to be opened exclusively to SWOCC students for the next 8 weeks. The idea is that today, after looking at these materials, reading the magazine article, listening to me talk, looking at the drone video, and then visiting this site, I'd like each of you to take 5 minutes or 10 minutes, the last 5 or 10 minutes of the workshop, and write a comment. See if it can appear. And the comment can be about anything focused on this class or Cougar Pass. And we will keep this comment section open throughout the entire term so that the people working on this particular topic can take your recommendations, your thoughts, your suggestions to heart, as well as me and Dr. Sullivan can use that to improve this site and maybe forward this proposal to the general public. But it's in your hands now. So hope you enjoy the term. Hope we can make it as enjoyable as possible. You got work to do. It should be mostly fun. And the more help we can get on suggestions, recommendations for making it better, that would be great and very much appreciated. Okay, well, that wraps up the first remote learning lecture workshop that I've ever taken part on. You have a list of assignments that will be hopefully totaling 3.5 hours. If you got a little extra time, there's plenty of reading and lots of materials there. And so the next job is for you each to form your groups. You'll have a brief 5 or 10 minute writing assignment having to do with Cougar Pass. And hopefully you enjoy the experience, and when you have fun in the coming 3 months of field trips. And I really look forward to meeting each of you, at least online, and completing these assignments and doing good work and having fun doing it.